Okay, Mitchell, today we're going to talk about rules for better idea generation. And I want to say right here at the start, I don't like rules.
Okay.
I don't like them one bit. Rules are so restrictive. They're so confining. Look, I know rules are necessary, so let's discuss it. But I just want you to know that. Now, last time we talked about some of the things that get in the way of idea generation that make it more difficult, like our own self-doubt, our own self-criticism, fear of criticism by others, and being overly serious. All these things that can make it difficult or impossible to come up with good ideas. So how can rules possibly help us get past things like that?
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, you're not alone, Keith. A lot of people have problems with rules. In fact, just the word rules really turns off a lot of people because they associate the word rules with being restricted, with being limited in some way, or being told what to do and not to do. But really, rules are kind of essential, especially in any kind of organized activity like a brainstorming session.
Yeah.
Because, when you think about it, things like sports and games and meetings and legal proceedings, even classrooms, or let's take extreme kickboxing death matches, right? They all have rules. So when it comes to brainstorming and generating ideas and coming up with ideas, some rules are very important. And, when it's time to generate rules, when you generate ideas, whether you're working by yourself or you're working with a group, nothing will kill creativity and innovative ideas in an idea generation session faster than negativity and judgment. And rules help really define what's in bounds and what's out of bounds when a group of people are coming together to generate ideas.
Okay, I guess that all makes sense. So what are some of these rules for generating ideas?
Okay, well, the first and one of the most important ones is to suspend all judgment while you're generating ideas, right? Because usually you have some kind of selection process sort of downstream in your process. So you don't really need to criticize or judge ideas while you're generating them. And in fact, if you're trying to generate ideas and judge ideas at the same time, it's going to be really, really unproductive. And a lot of people are sensitive to judgment, as we've talked about earlier. So, they'll just start to shut up and not share their ideas. So you really want to create a safe environment for sharing ideas. So you want to suspend all judgment while you're generating ideas.
Okay.
Next is that there's no such thing as a bad idea.
Wait a minute. Come on, Mitchell. Of course there are bad ideas. Aren't there bad ideas?
Well, there are ideas that may sound bad, right? But it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad ideas, because when you think about it, even the worst sounding ideas can have the seeds of a good idea or an interesting idea within it. Maybe you have to do the opposite of what the idea is, or take some kind of component of it. But, a lot of bad sounding ideas really do have the kernels of game-changing ideas within them.
Yeah, in fact, whenever we say that in our sessions, in our SmartStorming training sessions, or our large-scale group facilitations, when we're leading groups through the process, whenever we say there's no such thing as a bad idea, we always get pushback, right? There are always people that want to argue that point. But what we really mean by that is, while you're generating ideas, you want to give every idea the chance to live and grow, so that you can see where it might take you.
Yeah, and again, you have a selection process for that later on, so you don't need to have any thoughts about whether an idea is good or bad. You just really want as many ideas as you can, which leads to the next rule, which is you always want to go for quantity and not worry about the quality of ideas. Because when you think about it, for every 100 ideas that you come up with or your team comes up with, that maybe a handful or even fewer of those will be really good ideas that actually solve the challenge or give you a way to capitalize on the opportunity. So you need lots of ideas. for that. And then you need to embrace wild, crazy, edgy ideas, and not just try and come up with safe, sensible ideas, because you never know how far you can go until you go too far, right? And it's always better to have an idea that is so out there, that's on the edge of audacity, because you can always pull it back you can always tame it down a little bit, rather than try and take kind of a mediocre idea or an idea that's just so-so and then try and make that more innovative. You're just never going to get there that way.
Yeah, you know, as we always say, it's highly unlikely you're going to come up with a true game changer, a really, truly innovative idea, if you're not willing to take risks and say something that seems a little bit crazy.
Exactly. And
yeah.
And you know, the other thing to think about is when you're brainstorming in a group, there are some additional rules that you really want to keep in mind. Things like you want to build on one another's ideas, right? Because you may come up with a great idea, but somebody else may have another component that makes that idea even bigger and better. You really want to kind of capitalize on the phenomenon of creative genius that can occur when a bunch of people focus their attention on a problem, because everybody comes from a slightly different perspective and could add something really interesting and unique into the ideation process.
And that's really the value and the power of working with a group, right? Absolutely. I mean, that's really where you get some extra juice in the process, because you have all those different perspectives to work on an idea.
Right. It's the diversity that really makes it a very rich environment for co-creating ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Another aspect is you want to only have one conversation at a time. You don't want to have side conversations starting to break out, because you want the entire group focused on what's happening and being collaboratively created. If you have little splinter conversations going on, the group will very quickly lose focus and be very unproductive. And then probably the most important one is if the boss is in the room, right? You want to make sure that the boss speaks last.
The boss speaks last. That's my favorite rule. That's usually everybody's favorite rule, except sometimes the boss. But,
right.
You know, it really is very, very important. In fact, we wrote a blog post just about this topic, right, about making sure the boss speaks last. And there's a reason for that. This is not to suggest that the boss is always trying to control things or dominate. That is not always the case. And we've been in many sessions where that is not the case. But it's just human nature that we want to please our superiors, our supervisors. So if the boss expresses opinions or preferences for certain ideas or approaches, there's a high likelihood that a lot of people in the room are going to follow suit and support that notion. So whenever we're in that kind of a session with our clients, we will usually pull the person in charge aside and ask them to please hold off before sharing their ideas, so that the rest of the group can contribute. They always end up with better results by doing that.
That's right.
So hopefully now our audience understands just why rules are so important, because you see, creativity without some guidelines usually just turns into chaos. But if you have a few simple rules in place, well, the process runs smoothly and the ideas flow freely.
That's right, Keith.
But wait, there's more. Because one of the most evil and insidious things that every one of us does when we sit down to generate ideas is that we assume that we know beforehand what is or is not possible. So we put limitations on our thinking. Next time, we're going to talk about how you can question your pre-existing beliefs and assumptions so that you're able to see far more innovative possibilities.
Wow, that's great. So until then, remember to think more innovatively.
Do you have questions about how you and your team can think more innovatively? Email them to us at partners@smartstorming.com or contact us through our website at smartstorming.com.